Yeah.
And what's funny about it is that as you're trying to fix yourself and dig yourself out of this deep hole that life, society, and you helped also, those people who you saw down there in that hole who were there with you, who were your friends and people who you counted on, because you meet the people in the same situation that you're in life. Those people become your friends. And the second you try to get out of that situation and become better, those people are in that grave, in that dungeon, just yanking at your heels, man, saying, get the fuck back. Oh, no, come on back here, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna make me feel like shit by you getting out of this hole.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
So I get that all the time now. People would constantly remind me of who I used to be back in the day. And they always come out of the woodworks, man. Versus my God.
That's still happening?
You know what? When you come from a small town, and you come from a place that a lot of people don't want to come out of it and get out of it, and all you want to do is become somebody, small town mentality is a real mentality. You've got to be able to get out and let your mind see open-mindedness. Because a small town, what it does to you is it closes your mind. Completely closes your mind. Not everybody. This isn't everybody. A lot of people. You have to be able to go out there and create open-mindedness. You need space. You need space to see the world. Like a lot of racism, a lot of ignorance in the world, it comes from people not being out and seeing other things, seeing other people, seeing all kind of shit. That's why we judge so harshly, because our minds are so closed to the reality of life. Period.
Have you been back to Brazil?
I went back to Brazil a couple of times, and I have nothing wrong with Brazil. Because once again, another thing about growth is you can't hold on to hate. You can't hold on to hate. And see, once you take a different step, so I had to take a step out of my life, because once you're in that hell, that's all you see is what's in front of you. When I stepped out of it, I saw Brazil very differently. There were a lot of great people in Brazil. Some of the best people I knew were from Brazil. But when you're in hell, all you see is the little patch in front of you of the kids that are calling you nigger, of the people that spray painted nigger, we're going to kill you on your car. People put that shit in your locker. People put that shit on your notebook in Spanish class. That's all you see. You didn't see that, my God, a lot of people fucking like me here. So once you take a step back and see the reality of the true ignorance that you're dealing with from a small group of people, that's when you get growth. Because, I went through a phase in the book I talked about, man, I was all about black and only black when I was a junior in high school, because I was so beat down. I was the most ignorant I've ever been in my fucking life when I went there. I totally took everything, all the hurt, all the pain, and just put it in one fucking filter. I gotta find people who look just like me and act just like me to find acceptance.
That when you were doing the crazy haircuts and
that's the crazy haircuts, watching Malcolm X video every damn night when I went home and shit. Yeah.
So the last time you were here, we kind of recapped your story chronologically, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but there's a lot of new people listening, so I think it's worthwhile to kind of catch people up on exactly who is David Goggins and where you were, where you came from, what you endured, and how you arrived at this place. Is there a way to do that concisely? I
can do it pretty quick, I guess. Mm-hmm. I was born in Buffalo. My dad was owned skating rinks and owned bars. And he was a very insecure guy, and he was an alcoholic. He used to get women for favors. So my dad, I'm not saying he's a pimp. I always say he's a pimp because that's how I look at it. My mom said the proper way to say this is that your dad used to get women, and he would exchange women for favors. So there you go.
That's pretty much a pimp.
He was a pimp, right? He was a fucking pimp. So basically, that was my dad. He was a guy that didn't care much about anything but himself.
But he was kind of a baller in your community, right? He was a big baller,
right? Knew O.J. Simpson big time, knew all the Buffalo Bills. Him and Rick James were best friends. Wow. So we had two different sides. It was the side that everybody saw, which was the side of, man, your dad is so damn cool, man. He's awesome. And we lived on Paradise Road. The second that door was shut in that house, it was game on. The real him would come out. It was a perfect Jekyll and Hyde. So when you're born into that at a young kid and like you're getting beat for no reason, I'm not, whippings are whippings, man. Yeah. But this guy would beat you for no reason, just because he was drunk, just because he saw you, whatever.
It's like kind of like an Ike Turner character.
Ike Turner probably on steroids.
Right.
So that's who he was, and he was a perfect person for psychological warfare. The beatings were horrible, but the mind torture was the worst. he got so deep in my head as a young kid, and that really fucks up your foundation. You know, when you're born, man, there's some sensitive years in there, man, where your brain starts to develop and it starts to give you self-esteem, courage, confidence, all those things. And my dad was stripping that away from everybody. And when you see your mom, the worst thing to do is when you see your mom getting beat senseless at a young kid. That shit scars you permanently.
I mean, she was like a prisoner.
She was
to
a
this
prisoner.
guy. And what you guys had to do to escape and get away from him is like insane.
So she was 19 when she went there, and she was an innocent 19-year-old, and she came from a great family, and she met this man, and totally just it was brutal. It was very sadistic the way she was tortured by him, and the way my brother and myself were, and that broke me and my brother up. My brother loved my father a lot. He saw something very different than I saw, because whenever my mom and I would get beat, my brother, I'm not calling him a coward by any means, he handled it very different than I did. He would go in his room. He didn't want to see the beatings. I would protect my mother. So in that, I saw a lot more of the violence. I was trying to protect her, and me trying to protect her, I really got beat. So when you're constantly in that battle, in that struggle, and your brother's going in a different room because he didn't want any part of this shit. He hated it, and he loved family. You know, he loves family. And I became the person like, hey, man, I'm not about it.
And you had to shoulder the responsibility, this idea within you that you were responsible for making sure that your mom would be safe.
And that was hard for an 8-year-old kid, because when we moved to that small town of Brazil, Indiana, I had a learning disability. I was stuttering. I was battling so much shit that I never even told my mom about, because she was battling her own demons. So at 8 years old, I'm looking for comfort, and I'm like, hey, don't bother your mom with shit. You were not the man of the house. And I started becoming real protective of my mother at a young age. So whatever you're going through, man, you're on your fucking own. You're not gonna tell your mom shit. And she ended up finding out later through the school systems and through me failing and through me, you know, all these issues I went through. She found out a lot, but you know, I kept as much as I could from her, man. And that really was a hard task for me to raise yourself mentally when you're already in the deepest, darkest dungeon of all time. And I think that's where I started really creating myself. I had to really start creating a certain pattern, a certain process, a certain kind of indestructible toolbox to handle my life.